discuss Pbr textures in depth. As for this video, we will learn the basics of assigning Pbr textures using the Node Wrangler add-on and using the import USD material feature. We will also cover several techniques for organizing the nodes in the shader editor. There are many websites that provide textures for 3D usage. Some of these websites provide textures for free, such as BlenderKit.com, Polyheaven.com, AmbientCG.com, and so on. Some websites provide paid textures with several free ones. For example, Polygon.com, Textures.com, GameTextures.com, Fab.com, and so on. If you download a texture from these websites, you will get not just one file, but multiple files. This is because currently they all follow the Pbr standard or physically based rendering principle. For practice purposes, I already downloaded this Stonewall texture set from AmbientCG.com called Tiles093. To use this texture set in Blender, you can do it manually by importing each of the textures one by one. But it will be a lot faster if we use the Node Wrangler add-on for this, as it can import a whole texture set in one go. First, make sure the main material node is selected, and then you can click on this button that says Add Principled Setup, or simply use the shortcut Shift-Ctrl-T. I suggest that you memorize the shortcut, as you will need to do this often when working with Blender and Pbr textures. Notice that this command opens up the file browser. In this condition, you need to select not just one image, but multiple images at once belonging to the same texture set. If you activate the list view, you can see the type of texture at the end of their names. For example, color, displacement, normal, etc. We will discuss these texture types in a later lesson. For now, just hold Ctrl and then select the color file, the normal GL file, and finally the roughness file. And then click on this button to confirm the import. As you can see, all of the texture files have been assigned automatically to our main material node. The add-on also created the mapping and the texture coordinate nodes for us and already shared it across the texture nodes, so they all use the same UV map. Let's check the rendering result. We can try rotating the viewport to see the material against the light source. It seems everything is okay. Now, you might ask, how does the Node Wrangler add-on know exactly which files go into which slots? Does it use AI? Unfortunately, no. It just recognizes certain keywords that are present in the file names. If you open the Preferences window and then open the Node Wrangler options, you'll see a button that says Edit Tags for Auto Texture Detection. If you click on it, you will see the list of keywords or tags used by the add-on. For example, if the add-on detects diffuse, diff, albedo, and so on, the texture will be used as color texture overriding the material's base color. Alright? Before we discuss what just happened in the shader editor, let's go back and see the other files that we don't use. For this, we can use the file browser editor. Open the folder where the texture set is. Alright, this image serves only as a preview. This way, we can see what the material looks like when browsing the files before we import them into Blender or other 3D apps. Basically, this file is not a texture. Next are the normal map files. We will discuss normal map in greater detail in a later lesson. Long story short, they are used to define the bumpiness of the material. As you can see, AmbientCG.com provides two types of normal map files. The DX version is for DirectX, and the GL version is for OpenGL. Most of the time, you only need to use the OpenGL version. If you find a normal map without the DX or GL letters behind its names, you can be sure that it is an OpenGL version. The DX version is only useful in game engines when you want to target PC or Windows-based machines that use DirectX API. Okay? Finally, these two files. These are also not a texture. This one is a material definition in the Material X format, and this one is a scene definition in the USD format. You can search online what Material X is and what the USD file format is. Blender supports importing and exporting USD file formats. Although I prefer the node wrangler method, let's see how we can import textures in a form of USD material. First, go to the File menu, then Import, and then choose Universal Scene Description or USD. Select the file. Now, this is important. Before you click on the Import USD button, you need to open the Material section on the right panel, and then turn on this Import All Materials option. If you don't have this enabled, Blender will ignore materials that are not linked to any geometry. And because the USD file we are about to import does not contain any geometry, it will ignore the material unless we have this turned on. Okay, now we can click the Import USD button. The material and the needed textures are already imported, but no object is using it yet. To check the material, you can select any object and then open the material drop-down list. And here is the material. The reason why I prefer to use the Node Wrangler add-on over this import method is that the results can vary depending on the person composing the material. For example, it uses a specific UV map name that does not exist on the object. We need to remove the name first for the material to use the default UV map instead. Also, we don't actually need to use this separate color node as the texture is in grayscale and already has the color space option set to non-color. If you are still confused, don't worry, we will discuss this non-color value and a separate color node in later lessons. Alright, let's go back to our previous material with nodes created by the Node Wrangler add-on. Besides using the material panel in the Properties editor, you can also quickly swap materials via the drop-down list at the top of the shader editor. Now, looking at these shader nodes, there are a few things that might spark your curiosity. First of all, there is this connection junction. This little dot that makes the connection branch is called a reroute. If you are wondering how to create this, there are several ways to do it. But first, you need to understand that this reroute node is not mandatory. I mean, you can just branch directly from the output point like this. The reroute node is useful to keep things organized, especially if you need to connect two nodes that are far apart or are blocked by other nodes. The first method, which is my favorite method, is to hold the Shift key and then click drag using the right mouse button across a connector. As you can see, Blender creates a new reroute node at the location where the cut happened. The other two methods are using the Add menu up here or using the Shift-A shortcut. Choose the Layout menu and then choose Reroute. Place the node in any location that you like. After that, you can connect to or from this reroute node to other nodes. Okay, please note that you cannot move a reroute node simply by clicking and dragging like you normally do with other nodes. Why? Because click dragging will create connectors instead. To move this node, you need to select it first, and then press G. Okay. To delete a reroute node, you can just select it and then press the delete button. However, if the node has two in and out branches, and you do not want to break the connection, you should press Ctrl X instead. Alright? Let me set the reroute node back as before. The last thing that I want to mention in this video is these black boxes. These are called frames. The main function of these frames is just for layout purposes, so they don't actually alter the nodes or the rendering result in any way. With frames, you can easily move all the nodes inside it together as if they are a single node. To put a node inside a frame, for example this reroute node, simply move and release the node when it is inside that frame area. If done correctly, The frame now will automatically try to wrap the node. To create a new frame, my preferred method is to use the shortcut Ctrl-J. But first, you need to select the nodes that you want to include. Just for example, we can select these two nodes. Press Ctrl-J. Now, they are both inside a new frame. To delete a frame, simply select the frame and then press Delete. Deleting a frame will not delete the nodes inside it. The alternative method of creating frames is through the Shift-A shortcut or the Add menu up here. You can go to the Layout submenu and then choose Frame. Just place the new frame in any location that you like. If the frame is empty, we can change its size by dragging its border. But this won't automatically put the nodes in the area as its member. You need to select the node or several nodes and then release them inside the area to make them members of the frame. As you can see, this method takes too many steps compared to the Ctrl-G shortcut. The last technique I want to cover is adding label to a frame. To do this, make sure the frame is selected. Then, inside panel, in the Node tab, just type the text you want to appear in Label field. You will see the label text at the top of the frame.